Publish a book you're proud of. I am your host and guide throughout this whole process, Michael Pietrobon, founder of Foglio Custom Book Specialists. And I'm joined by Stefan Vranjes, who's very graciously assisting me through this whole webinar process. This is the very first Foglio webinar, so if there are any hiccups, please excuse us this go around. Okay, so let's get right into it. Just going to pull up the slides here. So I'd love if everyone could answer in the chat. What are you working on right now? Is it a mystery novel, a children's book, a memoir just for close family and friends? Leave a comment in the chat. I'd love to know what you're working on. So what I intend to articulate to you today is a single process that works for pretty much every single book. So this is something important to understand right from the beginning. Even though every book is unique, the process to create a professional book is remarkably consistent. And over my more than a decade working, making books, I've noticed there are certain trends that each book follows, certain milestones that each book achieves. And this is what we have called the Foglio 4-stage process, which is what we're going to get into today. So before we get into all that, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a publishing professional with over a decade of experience making books. I started in academic publishing, then right after university moved into self-publishing with a small agency in downtown Toronto. I studied publishing at York University. More specifically, I got a degree in English and professional writing in the book publishing stream. So that's where I learned how to be an editor, how to make a book, everything that goes into making a book. But it wasn't until I actually started working in the industry after university that I really learned the ins and outs of the process. I founded Foglio in early 2024 with a vision to create a self-publishing service that was more design-centered, because I found that many self-publishing services lack that kind of design expertise, and they might focus on other elements like marketing and editing and all that, but design sort of gets pushed aside. And I think it's the leader in the self-publishing process, which we'll get into later today. I'm a lover of all things literary. Everything I do pretty much revolves around books, whether it's editing them, designing them, reading them, writing them, all of the above. And I have self-published 2 books myself. So I know a little bit about, well, quite a bit about the self-publishing process from a firsthand experience, right? And these are my 2 books. The first is a volume of poetry called Animula, which will, at least in its current form, never see the light of day again. It was a very youthful project. And the second is my novel, The Alphabet of Flowers, which was released in early 2021. So if you're here today, let me guess why you're here. You've spent months or years writing your book, and now you're staring into the publishing abyss, wondering what to do next. You've Googled how to self-publish and found 4 million answers, none of which can quite agree with one another. And you thought finishing the manuscript was the hard part, but publishing is proving even more confusing and frustrating. What you need is a clear path forward to start your self-publishing journey with ease, one-on-one support from an experienced self-publishing professional, confidence that your book will look as good as anything from a traditional publisher, and to finally check Publish My Book off your list with pride. So I'd like to introduce you to Foglio's 4-stage path to publishing success. And you're going to be getting this handout at the end of this webinar today. And it's an interactive PDF that's going to outline everything you need to know to get started on your publishing journey. Of course, there will be other questions, and that's what our free consultation calls are all about. But it's a good way to get started and start planning your manuscript, planning your writing, planning design, figuring out your target audience, and you're set. So the 4 stages are preliminary steps and planning, manuscript editing and revisions, book design, publication, and marketing. So we're going to start with preliminary steps in planning. Now, at the end of this stage, you will have a finished manuscript that's ready for editing, a clear idea on who your target audience will be, and a clear idea of your budget for editing, design, and marketing services. So when it comes to preliminary planning of your book, one of the very first questions you'll need to answer is, what genre is your book? Now, I don't want you to think of this as a limiting factor in the planning process. This is it is a limitation to ascribe a certain genre to your book, but I think within there you can find a lot of freedom to express yourself the way that you want. So genre might seem like just a label, but in publishing, it's incredibly important. Your genre defines your readers' expectations, the style of writing they anticipate, the emotional journey they hope to go on, and even what your cover and title should feel like. So at first glance, when you see these book covers here, even at a distance, and they're deliberately small in this slideshow, you can probably tell what type of book it is, right? At the top, you've got fantasy novels. In the middle there, you've got mystery. And at the bottom, you've got children's books with colors that pop and all those tropes that you recognize from these books. So an important part of this is understanding the tropes of your genres, the recurring themes, situations, or character types that readers expect. If you're writing a cozy mystery, for example, your readers will expect maybe an amateur sleuth, a small town setting, a relatively low stakes atmosphere, for example. Recognizing these tropes isn't about limiting your creativity. It's about aligning your book with what readers already love, so your book feels immediately familiar and inviting. Now at Foglio, when we begin working with a new author, we take extra care to help define the book's genre and audience, because this shapes every decision that follows, from editing to cover design to the entire marketing strategy. Additionally, when you're in this stage one, preliminary steps in planning, it's prudent to read everything you can, not just books in the genre, but the back covers of the books, the Amazon descriptions. Figure out what categories and keywords they're using on the Amazon listings. Read reviews of the books. Read what might be shortcomings in a particular book, and see how you can sort of manage your audience's expectations. Now, you don't want to be writing just for your audience, right? You have something of your own to say, and I get that. At the same time, though, if you're writing within a certain very predefined genre, it is useful to know what people expect and how you can kind of surpass their expectations. And then the final stage of the preliminary steps and planning stage is to figure out what services you might need help with, right? So here's a simple but crucial truth. You don't have to, and you shouldn't try to do everything yourself. The best self-publishing journeys are a collaboration. Part of your early planning should be asking yourself honestly, where do I have real strengths and where could I use some professional support? Maybe you're a fantastic writer, but you have no design experience. Maybe you're confident editing your own prose, but unsure how ebook formatting works. That's completely normal, and that's what we're here to help you with. When you know your strengths and seek expert help in the areas where needed, editing, design, and marketing, for example, your finished book will reflect that professionalism. And yes, there is a cost to bringing experts onto your team. That's why planning your budget early matters. At Foglio, we work closely with authors to tailor our services to their needs and their budget. Whether that means full self-publishing packages or more focused support, like just cover design or editing, a la carte services, as we call them. Thoughtful investment up front saves you from costly mistakes later, like needing to redesign your book because it wasn't formatted properly for Amazon KDP. I've heard that one many times. So something to be aware of. Stage 2 of the Foglio 4-stage process is manuscript editing and revisions. So at the end of this stage, you will have a manuscript that is clear, well-structured, and free of major errors, a refined tone that matches your intended style and audience, and confidence that your book is truly ready to progress to cover design and formatting. So here's an interesting statistic. 59% of self-published authors have used a professional editor. I don't know about you, but I find that a little bit surprising, considering the sheer volume of self-published books out there and books in general. The thought that most authors are using the services of a professional editor is a little surprising. And that got me thinking that authors need to do something more to set themselves apart. And your secret weapon as an author is getting beta readers, and that can be anyone. In my view, a beta reader is anyone who's willing to read your book and provide feedback on it, even if it's just an excerpt, even if it's just whatever you can get someone to read. In that situation, you can get a good feel for what regular people, not editors, will think about your book, right? And that's invaluable information as you're, starting the editing process and starting to refine your manuscript. And just to be clear, a beta reader is a volunteer who reads a manuscript and provides feedback to the author before it's published. And I can't stress this enough, anyone can be a beta reader. It's almost better, I've found with my own work, if you find beta readers who haven't read a book in years, or they don't read in your genre, whatever it is, you can get some valuable insights from them. Now, when you do ultimately find your editor, it's important to keep an open mind, right? So find an editor who can match your style, but the editor doesn't need to be genre specific. They don't need to be editors specializing in fantasy or romance or whatever type of book you're writing. That's a plus, but it's not necessary. And what I would say you should be looking for more is, I guess the vibe is the word. If you can collaborate with them in a straightforward and easy manner, and you feel comfortable sharing your vision for the book, and you feel confident that they will be able to match that, right? It's important to communicate your goals effectively with your editor and be open to propose changes. However, remember that you, as the author, have the final say on the manuscript. So especially when it comes to self-publishing. With traditional publishing, you might have fewer rights when it comes to publishing your book. But with self-publishing, you have the final say. And nonetheless, it is prudent to follow the guidance of your editor. Now, another important point about editing is that it's important to get organized, and your editor is not a mind reader. So anything that you'd like to communicate in the book, a book has a lot more to it than what the actual writing is, right? There's a lot of research that goes into it, a lot of sources, references, citations, and all that sort of thing. Even if it's a fiction book, right? You're doing research on a certain landscape, a certain area, certain characters of certain backgrounds, whatever it is. And providing that information to your editor will just augment the experience and ensure that you're on the same page before your editor even starts reading your manuscript. So there are a few different types of editing, and I'd like to quickly go over what these are, because you've probably heard these terms tossed around and you're not quite sure what they mean. So let me get here. So start off with a manuscript evaluation. A manuscript evaluation is an overall review of your full draft, pointing out what's working and what's not, and giving general advice on how to make the book stronger before diving into detailed edits. Now, a manuscript evaluation does not include any copy editing per se, although, when I've done manuscript evaluations in the past, I've tried to flag these errors whenever I found them, because why not? If I notice them, I should make a note of it. Next would be copy editing, which is a careful line-by-line check for grammar mistakes, awkward sentences, punctuation errors, consistency issues, making sure the writing is clean and professional without changing your voice. Next would be developmental editing, big picture help with the story itself, fixing plot holes, improving character development, tightening, pacing, and making sure everything fits together in a way that keeps readers engaged. Structural editing is focused on how the book is organized. So rearranging chapters, perhaps cutting or combining sections, and making sure the structure flows logically and naturally from beginning to end. And the very last step before moving on to design is proofreading. It's a final sweep to catch typos, missing words, tiny errors, formatting issues, ensuring the book is polished and ready for publication. Now, it should be said that this is all a collaborative process, right? And your editor should involve you in the editing process and probably have some queries for you, some things that might not be clear that might need clarification. And another thing that should be mentioned is that many of these aspects can happen simultaneously, right? It's not the case necessarily. It used to be, not so much anymore, that you'd have a copy editor, a developmental editor, structural, and so on. These days, you know, these roles are kind of fusing together, and it is entirely possible to do for example, developmental edit and a copy edit at the same time, and then maybe take a broader view and do on a second pass a structural edit with a proofread. That's entirely possible. So now we move on to book design, which is my pride and joy. I love it. I love it. I love it. I can't say that enough. And so at the end of this stage, you will have a cover design that clearly conveys the book's content and tone, a typeset interior that's easy to read and free of formatting errors, and a validated ebook file that looks consistent across different e-readers and devices. So let's get right into it. Cover design. We call this your design leader. And the reason we call cover design your design leader is because we start with cover design, and there's a very deliberate reason we do that. The reason is that your cover design informs all the other design that happens afterwards. And you think about it logically, right? When a potential customer is looking for a book to buy, the first thing they're most likely going to see is a cover. Before they see an excerpt of the book or they see the ebook, they're going to see the cover of the book, whether it's on an Amazon listing or on a bookshelf at Chapters or Barnes & Noble. That's what they're going to see. So we lead with that, and we refine your author brand style through the cover design, through multiple revisions. That's what we're all about, is collaboration in that way. And once that is figured out, then we move on to the rest, right? So cover design, like I said, informs all other design work, and it's informed by the genre research that we did in stage one, right? And of course, we're always happy to help you with that if you aren't sure where to start with genre research. And cover design turns people into customers. So like I said, if there's a book on a shelf or an Amazon listing, that will, for better or for worse, that'll be the thing that people will see and will most often compel them to click. Second would be the title, but usually psychologically it's the cover first, right? Then we move on to typesetting and formatting. And again, this is all informed by the cover design. So I have this little tag here, love your readers, right? The distinction I draw is this. Cover design is what makes passersby into customers. Typesetting and formatting is what turns customers into readers. And you're not going to get any reviews for your book. You're not going to get any press, any attention, anything at all if no one reads your book, right? It's not just a furniture piece. It's meant to be read. So good typesetting is considerate of your readers, considerate of their eyes, with generous use of white space and legible fonts, good spacing, everything typeset correctly. And like I said, it's informed by cover design, genre research, and target demographics. So this is an important point. If you expect that your readers will, for example, maybe be elderly or a little older than average, it may be useful to adapt to that with larger typefaces, more legible typefaces, maybe a more conservative interior typesetting, for example. And like I said, interior typesetting turns customers into readers. And don't try to save paper. This is my pro tip of the day. Please, if you're working on typesetting your own book, don't try to save paper. Just design a book you would want to read, because realistically, having nice, thick, generous margins on your book is not going to add that much to the page count and therefore the cost. It's much more worthwhile to have a book that is enjoyable to read. Then we move on to ebook design and validation. So it's the final element to be designed, and it's informed by the cover design and the interior typesetting. And what we do here at Foglio is we try to retain that design as well as we can, all that styling. And something really cool that we can do, which I don't think it'll actually play on here, but there are some interactive features we can do with EPUBs. For example, multimedia and pop-ups and audio and all that. It's the easiest way to get your book in front of readers. So, physical books are a physical thing to sell. It's hard to ship them around the world in most cases, although there is an exception that we'll get to in stage 4. But generally, the easiest way to get your book across the world at lightning speed is with an ebook. And I'd also like to mention validation is a way that we, you might have heard this term before. It's a bunch of accessibility checks and basically some software that we put in there to ensure that the ebook is compatible across all reading devices with all assistive technologies. It's entirely accessible. And DRM stands for Digital Rights Management. And that's, again, another piece of code that we can put in the ebook that will prevent anyone from pirating your book, from stealing the content. So it goes so far as to prevent readers from even taking a screenshot of the ebook. If they're reading on their phone, they take a screenshot, it'll just be blank, which is pretty remarkable. In my view, it goes a little bit too far sometimes, because there is a reasonable case where you might want people to share excerpts of the book, even just among friends, right? But something to keep in mind, if the security of the book is very important to you, we can put all these practices in place, and they're virtually bulletproof. Like there's no way to get through them, at least that I found so far. So this was intended to be the interactivity demo, and doesn't look like it's going to work, but what it does is, for example, this is an ebook version of Voltaire's Candide, and it's in French as it originally was written. I downloaded this book and was very much impressed by the way that they included these interactive ebook features, and it's something we can easily do as well. If you tap on one of the sentences here, it'll give you the English translation just in a pop-up. So it's great for educational resources like parallel translations, all kinds of things. Whatever you can do on a website, you can do in an ebook, because it's all HTML and CSS. It's all the same. Not to get too technical with it, but letting you know that option is there for you. Now, the final stage of design is a perfect segue into promotion and marketing of your book. So again, the reason we start with cover design is that's our design leader. It starts the whole design process and helps us define your author brand. Again, informed by genre and your personality. So we can create promotional materials based on your cover design. Promotional materials are inspired by your cover design. They make everything match the look and feel of your book. They create a consistent professional brand for events, signings, and even online events. And I want you to think of like bookmarks, posters, business cards, banners, shirts, anything. Anything is possible. And the purpose is to build recognition and excitement around your book launch, right? So that's what we're all leading to. So, and that is the perfect segue into case study number 1, Alan's bookmarks. So Alan came to us a little while back with a book. It was early last year, and very interesting book about his travels through Central and South America in the 1960s. It's a travel diary, memoir sort of thing. And we made this very stunning cover, I might say, based on the book. And when it came time to print it and market it eventually, I had what I think is a pretty good idea. And I'll show you what that was exactly. So you'll see here, there are bookmarks with a QR code. When Alan published Here Comes the Sun, we knew right away that his striking cover artwork would do more than just sit on a shelf. We created promotional bookmarks that matched the exact style and colors of the book, so that every time someone picked one up, it felt instantly connected to his story and brand. When your promotional materials echo your cover design, it builds trust and recognition, and it makes everything feel polished and intentional. So what we did was include this QR code that links straight to the Amazon review page. And note, not to the Amazon page, not to the Amazon listing, not to the author website, the Amazon review page, which means that when someone would scan that code with their phone, it would bring up that little dialog box where you leave your review, because most people are already logged into their Amazon accounts on their phones, and it's very easy to do. So it tore down all the resistance that an author might feel in actually posting a review. You know, if you have to go through the listing, it's a little bit of a roundabout process. It's not so straightforward. What this did was give the readers rather no excuse but to leave a review. And what that did was, even before launch, he had a bunch of reviews. I think about 20 reviews, which is incredible. Like, I've never seen anything like that. And the result is that people started selling the book, and people started purchasing the book rather, and it was selling, and it had a pretty good reputation, right? Based on those reviews. So the whole idea is to break down this resistance that people might feel to leaving reviews. And we'll get into it later. Amazon reviews are one of the most important things. Even if you don't really want to sell on Amazon, it's essential. Okay. So now we're moving on to stage 4, publication and marketing. At the end of this stage, you will have a clear plan for where your book will be sold, whether it's online and or physical locations, a defined pricing strategy, including any discounts or promotional approaches you might take, and a marketing roadmap covering events, outreach, and any custom materials. So let's start off with printing your book. It's the big question we get asked. How do I print my book? What does it cost to print a book? I'll tell you right off the bat, I don't know. It's different for everyone, different for every book. And what I found is that the best way to get a short run of books printed is to do it through Amazon, right? So it depends on your needs, right? Print on demand through Amazon, virtually no one can compete with their prices, right? Here in Canada, at least, you can get probably for most books around $4 to $5 a piece on any quantity. So that's a single book or 999 books, which is an amazing price. And you get a pretty good soft cover. They can even do hardcovers now. I'm not sure about the quality of them, but definitely a pretty good soft cover book. And the other option would be to print a short run through a printer like us. And I'll show you here. This is the book that you see in the photo there. It needed a custom job, right? It's not the kind of thing that could ever be printed by Amazon, at least not yet. You know, it's got this like custom foiling, leather bound, printed end sheets. It's a gorgeous book. So if you're looking for something like that, you might want to go through a custom book printer. Now, this raises the question of Amazon KDP versus IngramSpark. They're both great options for authors. I don't feel too strongly about one or the other. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that if your intention is mostly to sell through, I should preface this by saying there's no reason to avoid either one of them. You should have your book on both services. But the advantages of Amazon KDP are that consumers will most likely purchase through Amazon because people buy everything on Amazon. And there's a lot of trust there, and they know that they're going to get their book. However, with IngramSpark, the great advantage is that that's how you would get your book into brick and mortar locations. So independent bookstores, even Chapters, Indigo, Barnes and Noble, they all but refuse to purchase books from Amazon. So it's very unlikely that if your book is only listed on Amazon, you'll be able to sell it to these retailers, right? So having it on IngramSpark is a great alternative. They also have a few more options for cover finishing options. Like I think they can do linen or leather bound hardcovers with foiling, and sort of like what I showed you here. Not quite the same, but a good way there. You also want to consider printing promotional and review copies. And again, printing through Amazon KDP is probably the best way to do this because you get a nice, perfectly fine physical book. The printing is good, print quality is good, text is legible and everything. And then you can easily send these out at a minimal cost to you, right? If one of your reviewers is looking for a physical copy rather than a digital copy. And then, of course, pricing research. So you're going to have to see what other books in your genre cost, and we can, of course, help you with that. Now, marketing your book, getting the word out. Book marketing is always author-led, whether you're working with a traditional publisher or a self-publishing service like us. It's always author-led, right? It's going to be your social media that's primarily driving traffic to your online listings. But we can help. So one thing we've developed in recent months is the Foglio marketing kit, which includes templates for 4 different documents, and not just templates, we'll actually write them out for you based on what we learn about you and your book throughout the first 3 stages of the publishing process. And these include a trade review pitch letter, a blog pitch letter, national and local TV and radio pitch letter, and a community event pitch letter. So that's like doing seminars or conferences or anything like that at your local library or community center, for example. And we can help you develop a pretty strong pitch for that. The idea here is to lead with the value you will provide, not to try to sell your book, right? That's a secondary thing. That's an afterthought. You want to be able to provide value, whether it's through, let's say you're writing a nonfiction book about mental health, you might want to do a workshop on that, right? And then with the added bonus of having your books on a back table, and disclosing that ahead of time will increase the likelihood that the event will be a success and that you'll actually be able to host it at these places. Another option, this is kind of new. It's sort of in the experimental stage right now, but it works. We found that it works best for genre fiction or nonfiction, with a specific caveat. That being that like something like literary fiction wouldn't really work well for pay-per-click ads because it's kind of hard to categorize them. But something like a fantasy novel, mystery novel, romance, these are fairly easy to target the right people with a pay-per-click campaign. So that's a new option. And I haven't seen too many other self-publishing services offering anything quite like that. It's a great way to get your book in front of potential readers, right? Then we get into all the marketing services that we use to help authors. There's these involve extensive research. There's no one-size-fits-all approach, and because every book is different. So some of these services will not be appropriate for every author, but many of them will be appropriate for most. And yeah, I want to go over ARC readers as well, blurbs, and promotions. So let me just find my page on that. Here we go. Okay. So Publishers Marketplace is they do a lot of things. It's difficult to say exactly what one thing that they do, but basically they help you write your book blurb. So the whether it's on the back cover or the Amazon listing, they can help with that. And you basically do some research on other books in your genre and see what people are doing, and you can sort of build a word cloud based on what kind of terminology is selling these books and the success rates that people have. CanReads is a way to get reviews for your book. It's Canada specific, and I think most of the people here are from Canada. BookBub is a great resource for sending out promotional copies of your book. Again, this is probably most appropriate for authors of a series of books. So if you're doing like a trilogy, a fantasy trilogy, when you are releasing the second book, you might want to discount or even give away for free the first book in the series, just to get people hooked on the series, and then they'll be more likely to purchase the second one. Publisher Rocket, again, is similar to Publishers Marketplace in many ways. They help with optimizing your Amazon KDP listing. And then Book Sirens is a way of getting ARC readers. So ARC stands for Advanced Reader Copies. And this is a great resource. There are many people, even independent people, doing ARC readings. It's a good way to get reviews for your book in advance of the release. And basically what it does is build your Amazon listing with more reviews, and that helps you have like a more successful release, because like we alluded to earlier with Alan's case study, you want to get as many reviews as possible. Okay, so now it's time that we get into the author testimonials and say what people have to say about the Foglio 4-stage process. So Jane, author of The Buttes, this lovely novel here, says, Michael and his Foglio process helped me see my work from a designer's point of view. Working with Michael took the appearance of my finished book to the level of art. That's a wonderful accolade from Jane. And I can attest to the fact that, the way that her book came in and the way that it came out was entirely different. And I think we did some amazing work with it. Next review is from Herman Baxter, author of The Denied Stone, another book I have here, another lovely novel. I absolutely made the right choice in collaborating with Michael, and if you choose to do so, rest assured you will have made the right choice as well. And then finally, Michael was a delight to work with, took a personal interest, designed a perfectly suited cover, and promised and delivered the result by the necessary date, all at a very competitive price. Yeah. And then more accolades, more commendations from people. Wow. It's amazing to look back on just in little over a year what we've been able to achieve and how many authors we've been able to help through this Foglio 4-stage process. It's remarkable, and it's so exciting. And this leads me to case study number 2, which is a very special story for me. So this is Taylor DeLangus. He came to us early last summer with this book. I had to make myself a copy because it was just such a special thing to work on. So Taylor, unfortunately, was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and he wanted to ensure that he would be able to leave a legacy project for his daughter, who at the time was, I believe, 2 years old. And it's full of his fatherly wisdom, his life story, everything, his approach to life, everything that he wanted her to know, in case he unfortunately wouldn't be able to pass it on directly, right? So he wanted to put everything into a book that stated the permanence and importance of his message to his daughter. And just look at this thing. I mean, I've got it here too, so you can see it on camera, but printed end sheets with a picture of him and his daughter. He's got the bookmark ribbon did Smythe sewing. So this is like a very permanent book. This thing will look the same in about 100 years. Like it's a very durable, lasting product. Gold foiling on the front cover, and very touching picture of him and his daughter on the front there. And this is what Taylor had to say about working with Foglio. It was a superb experience interacting with Michael Pietrobon to ensure that the vision for my book became a reality. His creativity, patience, natural talent, and gentle guidance led to a palpable prayer answered. I would recommend Foglio Custom Book Specialist to anyone interested in self-publishing a book, as they provide professional advice while offering a high-quality finished product. Foglio offers multiple rounds of revisions, honest feedback, are always ready to remedy your inquiries, while walking you through the entire process with a prompt delivery date. The book I wrote for my young daughter, Darla, is sure to be a grand moment when I present it to her for her sweet 16th birthday, 14 years from now. Whatever you've written, whatever you feel is important to publish, whatever you envision to hold in your hands, Foglio will do whatever it takes to fulfill your written dialogue into a dream come true. That's remarkable, and what a great honor to receive that from Taylor, and even more to work on this enduring project for him and with him. So again, I'd like to reiterate that the Foglio process applies to every book, right? It's one process that applies to many books, whether it's a children's book, family history, memoir, mystery, fantasy, nonfiction, self-help, you name it. These are guiding principles that will guide you with ease from the very beginning of planning to the very end of marketing and ongoing marketing efforts. So if you want to work with Foglio, how do we start? That's a question we get a lot. So step one would be to review the publishing packages. And on the next page, I'm going to quickly show you what those are. Then prepare and send your files, and then schedule a one-on-one consultation. So the way I work, the way we work is we like to have a very close relationship with our authors and ensure that there's this camaraderie and general understanding of how the whole process should unfold, right? So starting off with the publishing packages, I have Launch, Momentum, Signature, and Ulysses. These build on one another, and every subsequent package contains everything that the previous one had, plus a little extra, or in some cases, like in the Ulysses package, a lot extra, including unlimited revisions, copy editing, extra copy editing with an additional 20,000 words, elite custom design, author website. That in itself is a great deal. I mean, the author website with a year of support, SEO optimization. It's a 4-page website that will get you get your book listings on there, everything you need to start selling and marketing your book. And then the Pro Marketing Bundle, which includes the marketing pack that I mentioned earlier, reviews, blurb optimization, set up with your Goodreads account, Amazon listing, Publisher Rocket, all these services that we mentioned before. We incorporate all of them as needed for your book. And then we also have a la carte services and additional add-ons as well. But as a way of showing my gratitude to everyone attending today, I'd like to offer, as a Masterclass exclusive, expiring at midnight tonight, for a 10% deposit, 20% off of each of these packages. So whichever one you see is right for you, and you have until midnight to decide on one. Just let me know. Email me at contact@folioprint.com to claim the offer, and you're going to be receiving the workbook at the end of this call, which has all the packages outlined, including the additional services. And you just let me know which one you're interested in, and then we'll apply that to your account. And with just a 10% deposit, we can settle this deal for you. The next step would be preparing and sending your files. All the instructions for this are in your workbook, and then schedule a one-on-one consultation. So you book a time to chat with me whenever you're ready. Everything that we discussed today and more, and the instructions on how to get started, are all in this workbook that you're going to be getting very soon. So thank you all for joining me today. If you have any questions, this is my direct email and my cell phone. So you can text, call, whatever you like. I'm happy to answer your questions. I'm a bit of a nerd for this stuff, so I'm happy to chat about it any chance I can get. Thank you again for joining me. And now I think we're going to answer a few questions in the last 10 minutes. Let's see here. Let's see what questions we have.
Do you want to start with the question that was answered in the beginning? I think someone answered.
Oh yeah, Pamela has a question.
Yeah.
Why do proofreading and editing services vary so widely in terms of cost? It depends. I think it will depend largely on the level of experience of the editor and the type of editing that they're doing. So now that you have a bit of a framework to work on or to base your research on as you're moving through the process, you know what developmental editing is, copy editing, manuscript evaluations. You know the difference between these now. You may be able to discern a little more accurately on what type of editing is being done. Because, for example, like if someone's doing a copy edit, generally that wouldn't cost as much as a developmental edit, right? Which is much more hands-on, much more involved, and is almost like a co-writing process, I would say, at that level. So that would be one factor. Another factor would be the editor's level of experience. And then beyond that, I mean, regional differences, it's hard to say. However, if you wanted a quote for your editing work, I could give you a pretty good justification for that in your particular case. So if you have any further questions about proofreading and editing, I can, oh, she answered. I got a quote on Fiverr to proofread my book, 102,000 words, and then one from EAC for 2,000. To be honest, given the size of your book, I'd be a little doubtful of the quality of that edit. I mean, it could be perfectly fine, don't get me wrong, but Fiverr was 200. This leads me to believe that these editors might be using something like Grammarly and just plugging your work into there and then calling it a job done. I'm not sure that you'd get like the kind of personalized support that we offer our authors, but that price does seem a little low, and not for a good reason. In my experience, this very low cost in editing usually suggests that they're using some kind of assistive technology and not doing it the good old-fashioned way, which is actually reading the book, because 102,000 words is that's a substantial book. That's a very big book, and there's a lot of time and effort that goes into editing that accurately. And again, I'd like to know what type of editing it is exactly. If it's just a simple copy edit, a proofread, or is it a more structural or developmental edit? So if you'd like to send your manuscript or a sample of it, and I can advise accordingly based on that. Oh, proofreading only. That would make more sense for why the price is a little lower if it's just proofreading. Still, though, it still seems a bit low, even by yeah, most editors I've seen charged, I mean, at least like double that. So yeah. Feel free to email me with any other questions. We can even do a one-on-one chat and discuss it in more detail. Stefan, did you have any other questions over there?
Sure, I have some questions. What is a very common mistake you see first-time authors make when preparing their book for print?
Well, we kind of alluded to this idea in the preliminary steps and planning stage. It seems that many first-time authors believe that they can do everything on their own, and I admire that courage and that dedication. However, at a certain point, all of us have to recognize the fact that we're not experts in everything, and I see a lot of authors, first-time authors especially, encountering roadblocks when it comes to like uploading their self-designed covers. For example, like getting the spine width and bleed and crop marks and everything right is not that difficult. Like you can watch YouTube videos and learn how to do it, but a professional designer is going to be able to do it with more fluency and will be able to spend more time perfecting and honing the design itself rather than worrying about these little mechanical details like the spine width, for example. So that's a common mistake. Another one is, for some reason, a lot of authors don't believe that they need to edit their books. Please edit your books. Like professional editors write books and they need editors themselves. No one is above editing. And both as a service to your readers and to yourself, to bring out the best in your book, have it edited in some form, whether it's just a manuscript evaluation with someone you trust, beta readers, whatever you can do, have someone else look at the book. And also, to that point, I would add this extra bit of advice. Put the book in a different format. So like change the font around after you've written it, put it on a smaller page size, read it on your phone, whatever it is. For some reason, changing formats really brings out some new mistakes, right? Like it makes some new things visible. I find this always in the process of moving from the manuscript into the first typeset version. Authors, all of a sudden, after saying that the manuscript was completed and ready to go, discover a whole bunch of mistakes. And I think the reason for that is seeing it in a new medium sort of sheds light on different things that you might not have noticed before that might have escaped your vision. So that's one thing. Well, one more question, Stefan.
Sure. How long does it take to publish a book with Foglio?
So it's different for every project. And these 4 stages that I mentioned, I mean, like stage 1, for example, you can start stage 1 before you even start writing, right? So a lot of it is going to depend on you as an author. For example, let's say we move into the editing phase. Might take 4 to 6 weeks to edit a manuscript, usually, to do a proper job on it. But, when we send the first draft to you, a lot of it's going to depend on how quickly you can get revisions back to us and how quickly you can accept those changes, or a lot of it depends on you as the author. Then when we move into design, again, we typeset the first version, send it to you, or send a cover design. You can take as long as you like, really, 3-4 weeks to get back to us, or you can respond the next day, and then maybe we can accommodate making the corrections that same week. So that being said, if you have a specific timeline, please make sure to make that known early on in the process, and we'll do our best to accommodate that. I mean, I've done books that take a year because the author just had all the time in the world and didn't really have a particular event or a rush for the project. And then there are other projects that I've done like cover to cover, fresh design, and editing within 2 weeks, right? So anything's possible. Yeah, it's different for every project. All right, that just about wraps up our time together today. Again, if anyone has any questions at all, send me an email, contact@folioprint.com. I'll send you as much information as I can, and then we can book a meeting as well, one-on-one, just to talk about your particular project. And again, that's my cell number there. Feel free to call, text, whatever you like, anytime you want. I'm here to help you out. And like I said, I love this stuff, so happy to chat about it anytime of the day. You're welcome, Nicole. You're welcome, Jennifer. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. And if you were not able to attend the live call today, I'm going to be sending you the recording shortly. And, I should probably make this handout live. Okay. Everyone can now download the Foglio 4-Stage Path to Publishing Success checklist and interactive workbook. Thank you all. Lovely having you all here. And Till the next time.